Be the Message is all about learning how to show the gospel, not necessarily tell the gospel. It's important to be able to tell the gospel, but first and foremost, we need to be able to live the gospel in our relationships with other people. And our focus really this week is on living that message. And when I started getting ready for today, I immediately thought of a friend of mine named Kim. Kim, why don't you come on up? Kim is going to help me with the message this morning. And if you're wondering where my robe is, I took one look at this chair and I said, there's no way I'm going to successfully get up there with my bridal gown on. So Kim, I think, is an incredible example of someone who lives the message every day, day in and day out, year in and year out. And I invited her to come and be with us this morning. And we're going to talk back and forth and hear her story and her husband's story. Tell me about your husband, Andy. How did you meet? How long have you been married?
Oh, we have been married 21 years this year. We met 11 years prior to getting married. It took us a little while to figure things out. We met in the parking lot of W. Zellen Company in Schaumburg. We were introduced by a friend.
Oh.
So that's how you know that the person you're going to marry is the one, if you remember a chance meeting in a parking lot.
When and how did your life with Andy change?
14 years ago this past February, my husband went into sudden cardiac arrest at work. Cause undetermined. Walk into the library, drop. Into the lobby of the library. He was in a coma for about 2.5 months after that because of a loss of oxygen to his brain. And at the time they said he could come out of the coma. He might not come out of the coma. If he comes out of the coma, we don't know if it's going to be fully himself, partially disabled, fully disabled. We don't know. So we were up in the air.
Okay. I think we've got a couple of pictures. If we could have the first picture, and of course they're right behind you. Here's the GQ shop. Looks like
Isn't it?
Yeah, he looks good. It could be on a magazine cover. And then the next one is from just a couple of Christmases ago.
That's us now.
That's the two of you now.
I tease him that his beard is really wet.
Yeah. You can go ahead and take the pictures off. What were your care options for Andy when he came out of the coma? What would those have meant long term for him?
Coming out of the coma, we went to a rehab hospital. And again, they said, we don't know. This is going to be a process. So he was in a rehab hospital for a couple of weeks and then went to a step-down unit. 10 days in the step-down unit, he ended up back in the emergency room, back in ICU, double pneumonia, sick. The step-down unit was in a long-term care facility that just was not able to handle things. And so at that time, I said, I can't do this. I can't be here advocating for him to make sure he gets the proper care. I called and fought and got him back to the rehab hospital after the pneumonia was done and said, teach us, we're taking him home. For however long, for whatever needs to be, for however much he gets back or doesn't get back, we're going home. So.
Okay. And I see Andy every month, but I want to make sure the congregation understands what can Andy do and what can't he do post rehab.
Andy is completely quadriplegic. He has no functional use of any of his limbs. He cannot speak or swallow properly. So he has a tracheostomy tube, a feeding tube. Those are all the grim options. Those are all the grim things. The good thing is, and you know because you've been there, you're there every month, Andy is fully cognitive. So he is fully aware. On the inside, he's himself. So he is the same person. He understands everything. He communicates with eye blinks, which is, sometimes very complicated and can lead to some confusion because sometimes a blink is just a blink. But, yeah, you've got your grim side, but then you've got on the inside where it counts, he's still Andy. So.
How has this experience impacted your faith? How has your faith impacted this experience? Because you are his primary caregiver
I am his primary caregiver.
And have been for?
13 and a half years. He's been home for 13 and a half years. He came home September 18th. We don't like to remember the date that all of this started, but we like to remember the day he came home, because that was the day we celebrated, and we put banners up. Yes, I am his primary caregiver. I don't consider that my first role. My first role is wife and mother, and caregiver is the third role, and it kind of encompasses the others. I take care of everything, and faith is what got us through everything. A lot of people, when they have something tragic like this happen to them, they can either go to God or you run away. And I didn't just go to God, I ran to God, and I think somewhere in Northwestern Memorial Hospital in the city, there is a kin-shaped hole in the ether where I just ran. I literally ran through the hallways at probably 2 a.m., running through darkened hallways on the cardiac floor of Northwestern Memorial. And I ran, and I ran, and I ran until I couldn't run anymore, and I just stopped and prayed. And pretty much from that moment on, faith gets us through every moment. We couldn't do it without it. We can't do this without God.
When we were talking the other day, you mentioned some advice you were given by a neurologist, and I think your faith played a big part in not taking that. Would you be comfortable?
Oh, yeah, I'm good, but this is why I asked you to have these here. When Andy was in the coma, he was at a specialty hospital. He was in the coma about 2 months at that point. And a neurologist I'd never met before sat me down with an administrator and said, patients who don't come out of comas at 3 months tend not to come out of comas. This could be 20, 30 years in a coma. My suggestion to you is you divorce him now and let him become a ward of the state, because this is not something you want to deal with. You're young enough that you might be able to marry again. And I sat dumbfounded. And I looked at the administrator, and did he actually say what he said he did? And she nodded her head. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, no. Our vow said, till death do we part. Not until it's not convenient or till we don't know. And I could not imagine people taking the option of letting... This isn't easy for me. I'm going to divorce. But apparently people do. And this neurologist just thought I was completely out of my mind to not take that option. And I said, I don't care. If he wakes up, what am I telling my children? Dad wasn't important enough. I didn't love Dad enough. Dad's not important enough to our life to stay in when things get tough. What was that telling them? That when things get tough with them, I'm out of there? I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to my husband. I couldn't do that to my children. And I walked out of there more determined than ever that this was going to be, whatever it was, whether he... And honestly, at that time, I thought, he's going to wake up and need a cane. And I remember going to Walmart and looking at all of the assisted things and seeing the cane and crying. I'm like, I can't believe I cried over a cane now. My husband's got a tilt-in-space wheelchair. But whatever it was, we were going to face it. God didn't give me this man for me to say goodbye.
And so Andy came home 13 and a half years later. What does the average day look like, if there is an average day?
Oh, there are lots of average days. We have a routine that is ingrained, and his routine is kind of set in my body more than my own, probably. So I could tell you everything I need to do for him, but I'll have to stop and say, wait a second. So there are some things that are very basic. The day starts with his, blood sugar, Lantus, meds, nebs, blah, 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 the 9 a.m. routine. And then it's this water and this meds and this nebulizer. And so there are some things that are very scheduled throughout the day. As my friend who is a nurse said, however, when you triage your day, you always put coffee at the top. Nothing happens before coffee. And there are some days that, I can't even make a full pot. I have to make the K-cup first and then make a pot of coffee. But our day has to also be fluid because you don't know what the day is going to bring. You don't know with him what the day is going to bring. You don't know with the kids. So we have to kind of be open to whatever's going to happen. My husband went to the hospital yesterday. So I was at CDH until 11 p.m. last night. And that's just part and parcel of sometimes you need to go to the hospital. And sometimes his care is more. Sometimes he doesn't need as much and we're out and about and running. But we kind of play fast and loose with the non-essential items. So things don't get dusted or vacuumed or mowed. It's not a big deal for us.
When was the last time Andy was in the hospital?
December 31st. He went New Year's Eve and was there for part of January. So.
And the longest time in between hospital stays?
A year and a half.
A year and a half.
A year and a half.
How many times do you think in the last 13 and a half?
Oh, I don't even want to think about it. I think we average probably, the average is probably twice a year over 13 and a half years.
Okay.
And some stays have been longer, and other stays have been, just a couple of days. This one will probably be the shorter stay. A lot of things, when you're in this condition, you can't do on an urgent care basis. Mm-hmm. We're very fortunate, though, that we have a home care physician. So they do a lot of stuff at home, which allows us to keep him at home for longer and reduces our time in the hospital. But yeah.
How do you get relief? How do you keep your batteries charged?
How do I keep my batteries charged? Well, first of all, I realize that I can't do this alone. There are times when I have to. But we have nighttime caregivers. I hired bath caregivers. My mother-in-law comes on Wednesdays so I can run errands or go out to lunch or go do things. I have great friends. Absolutely fantastic friends who from day one have been there. And I'm looking out, and Bianna's right in my eyesight. And so she kind of knows from the beginning. From the very beginning of this, I had friends picking the kids up from preschool and taking them home and giving them lunch so I can be at rehab. My friends, if I can't get out with them, they bring the party to me. We have movie night, game day, book exchange, hang out in the backyard, let's go to the Arboretum, are you up for a walk? The flip side is I get to do that too, because at the beginning it was a lot of people doing for us. Mm-hmm. And now it's gotten to the point where, we can do that for other people now too, which is very good. So it's a reciprocal. I don't know where I'd be without them. Pastor Marty coming once a month. People praying for us. People praying for people who they don't know. They see a name in a and they go, oh, okay, I'm going to pray for Andy today. I don't know who Andy is. It all makes a difference. But for me personally, it's my friends, my family, the caregivers. I know I can't do this by myself. And I do get out and have fun.
Our boys were in preschool here once upon a time.
They were. I was looking at pictures of the Christmas program with them. That was the first time I realized you were actually a pastor here, because I had met you as a preschool dad. So Christmas, Andy and I were sitting back there, and our kids come up, and you come walking out in the robe, and he turns to me and goes, "He's the pastor?"
Tell me about your kids, because they've pretty much grown up with this as the normal.
They have. This is, and it is our normal. And when they were really little, this was, they didn't know any different. And then when they, as kids do, start growing up and realizing this isn't everybody's normal, this isn't necessarily normal, and we had to learn about the fact that there is no normal. And yeah, there were a lot of unfair things. It wasn't easy. It wasn't always easy. But as I talk to a lot of friends, raising kids isn't easy. They are now 19 and 20. They are loving, fun, just great kids to be around. We finally got past all that goofy age, and they're really good kids. Their hearts are wonderful. They wouldn't want this any other way. We were at a different hospital than we were used to going to, and they didn't want to send Andy back home. They wanted him to go to this long-term care facility because they thought they were helping me. And they didn't understand the situation. They'd never treated him before. And when I was telling my kids, both of them just got ramrod straight, and they were ready to go to battle. No, Dad comes home. This is where Dad is. This is where Dad belongs. Home without Dad is quiet and weird, as they would say. It's weird. So, which is nice because, when you're going through all of this, you think, am I doing the right things for my kids? And now I can realize that, yes, I was. I was doing the right thing for not just Andy, but for our family.
Tell us about the glare.
Because Dad is still Dad, even though he can't do things. He's got looks, he's got sound, and when the kids were getting in trouble and doing things when they were younger, I would tell them, we're going downstairs and we're talking with Dad. We are going to talk with Dad. And they'd get the big eyes, don't make me tell Daddy, don't make me tell Daddy. And they'd have to go downstairs. Dad, I blah, 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 cry. And I heard, the first time I heard the term, I heard my daughter tell somebody, no, not going to do it, because Mom will make me go downstairs and tell Dad, and you fear the glare. You fear the glare. She did not want to see that glare. And I just looked at her, this is not unfair. You have more power laying here with those eyes. It doesn't matter what I said or what I did, but they feared Dad's glare. And but what I did find out, and I didn't know this when we talked last, I was talking with my daughter, and it wasn't just, it's not that they feared the glare. They really wanted his respect. They wanted, and they still, my daughter, the last time he was in the hospital in January, couldn't sleep one night, drove to CDH in the middle of the night and went and hung out with Dad at the hospital so she could talk some things out with Dad. And I didn't find that out until just this week that, oh yeah, she came because there were just some things she's got to talk to Dad about, and Dad's the one to go to. And I thought, how cool is that? And how cool that she can just go to the hospital and say, I need to go be with Dad, and I need to tell Dad things. And that is good. So they feared the glare, and hopefully still do.
19 and 20, they're not far from kind of launching out into the world. What does the future look like for you and Andy?
They aren't far from. Cassie's both kids are at COD, so we're lucky. They're in college but still home. Cassie is applying for her 4-year schools and will probably be gone, but she's looking at staying in Chicago, so she'll still be close. And then another year, who knows, will be off and about, and so the house will be a little more quiet, and Andy and I have discussed that, but having 19 and 20-year-old college-age students, the house is quiet a lot anyhow. It's either quiet or really loud. There's no in between. But we try not to project too far out. Your thing says the next 10 or 20 years. We take things day by day, month by month. New year, make our annual budget. You have those long-term plans that everybody has to have, and then you have the grimmer long-term plans that most people don't think about. But I'll tell you now, talk about it now while you can. Make those plans. Make your wishes known. But then we put those to the side. We really just are happy for every moment, for every day. So we don't make a lot of plans per se. So I don't know what will happen when all of the kids are gone. Hopefully it'll be just like it is now, and friends have said we'll have more mom days because we don't have to schedule around what the kids need and who took the car. And that's a good thing. But yeah, we take things very short term.
You know, when I first approached you, I was thinking, Kim is a great example of someone who is living the gospel daily in her relationship with her husband. And what I've learned the last half week or so, as we've really talked through the details, is he's really living the gospel back toward you and the children.
Oh yes, most definitely. This is not the Kim show. This is the Kim and Andy. This is a partnership. He gives as much as I do, and as I told you the other day, sometimes more. In his position, it could be very easy to just say, I'm done, I'm tired. But he doesn't. He wants to be there. And so he fights. He goes to the hospital. And every time we go to the hospital, we have to have the same question. What are his wishes? Is he a full code? Is he do not resuscitate? And yesterday, thankfully, he's fully aware, he's wide awake, and he can answer his own questions. And I'm like, it's not me. Come talk to him. And we go in and talk to him, and he tells them. He works just as hard at this. Not only that, he puts up with so much. He puts up with strangers having to come and take care of him and a loss of privacy. He puts up with people forgetting that he's downstairs and Netflix has gone to off of 3 shows and he's sitting there looking at a blank screen, waiting for somebody to come and turn something else on. Remember, I'm here. He puts up with my British mysteries. He has a resilience that I'm not even sure he thought he had. And if he could tell you, he would tell you it's not coming from him. From the moment all of this started, and he was able to communicate, and we had established all of that. I've asked him, and every time things get really bad, I let him know. If this is too much, if this is too hard, don't feel that you have to. This is between you and God. This isn't between you and me. If you think this is your time, work this out with God and do what you need to do. And every time he and God say, nope, and he gets better and he comes home and things are good. And I do know that he is working this out with God, because nobody could be here without that, without having a faith in that, and without having the support of God. So,
the neurologist says, divorce him, move on. But the words that keep coming to mind for me, and I know they mean a lot to you, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Would you put up the Ecclesiastes slide? Tell us, let's close just by hearing a little bit about this and what this meant to Andy, but what this means to Andy.
This was our wedding verse. And if one prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him, and a 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. When we were getting married, you get to look at all the different verses that they suggest you have at your wedding, and no, please not that one. No, everybody has that one. And this one hit my husband, or my soon-to-be husband, and because this kind of exemplified who we were even before we got married. I will have your back. You will have my back. But we can't do it without God having both of our backs. I always looked at the cord as a strand of 3 that can't be pulled, that wrapped around us and held us together. And Andy said, I always thought of the cord as a cord of wood. 1 branch you can break. 2 branches are a little bit stronger, but 3 branches you can't wrap around your hands around and snap. And I think in the long term, it's both. It's a cord of wood, and it's a cord of twine. It wraps us together and keeps us from breaking.
Amen. Thank you.